Hello, and welcome to Are You Seeing This? I am
And
Mo,
I'm Sarah.
and today we're coming back to reality TV and the many topics about relationships and the many conversations one can have about relationships from the very interesting world of reality TV.
Yes.
So Sarah, you said there's been an update on some
Yes.
of the couples we learned about.
So as of now, there's a few updates. There will continue to be updates on one of the couples, Paige and Craig, I talked about because Craig is on Southern Charm, which is currently airing, and then Paige is on Summer House, which is currently airing. And I just need to say, in the edit of Summer House, it is very clear that Paige gave them the go ahead to show Craig in a poor light, because some
Ooh.
things have been coming out about past behavior that she's covered up for him. But Married at First Sight Australia, I just want to touch on that it seemed like Jamie was in a good relationship and he's pulled back very suddenly, and it's very sad to see. That was so many women in the world were triggered by that because it was very relatable. Of
Which one is Jamie? Is that the one with the neck tattoos?
she was with the guy with the neck tattoos, yeah. Neck
Neck tattoo guy?
Yeah,
No.
well, so here's the thing. I was unsure because I don't like the quality of his neck tattoo, but he seemed like a sweet guy, and then he lost me with some of these antics. So that's one thing. Another thing that happened to Jamie is she stuck up for all the girls, and then someone came for her, and only one girl had her back. She stood up for every girl when their man was like acting out, and then the one time she needed her friend sat there quiet. And so that was really interesting group dynamic in comparison to what we talked about what happened last season on Love Island USA, where all the girls stuck together no matter what. One of the girls turned on Jamie to make her boyfriend look better.
Oh, Jamie.
Yeah.
Not Jamie. Jamie's ex-friend, girl. I feel like this is.
Yes. I forget her name, so I don't want to just throw it out there, but like it was disappointing to see that there was this dinner that happened that got very heated, and they kept telling Jamie that she was being aggressive and attacking
No.
people when they were saying that she said things that she didn't, and she was like, "What's going on? I didn't say this." And
This is so relatable to like. I feel like a real friendship dynamic that happens in life where you can be the person who's very responsible and like looking out for everybody, but also the type of person who like because with that personality also comes being the person who's very outspoken and very like this is the problem, we're going to talk about it, and being blunt and direct. But having that type of personality, I know from experience, is for insecure people very triggering for them, and it's so hard to like interact and have
yes.
friendships with them because like you're just here being like, well, this is what's happening and we need to talk about it, and they're like, why are you attacking me? And you're like, I'm not attacking you, girl, we're just talking. What's the problem?
Yep. And so that's just an update to that dynamic because I know last time I talked about the women banding together and I cited Jamie. So I did just want to say that that did fall apart. I do want to call out it was the other white women on the show that did not have her back.
Of course, yeah.
The only girl who had her back, I believe, was Aborigine. So, but I could be wrong. But she was not white, and so seeing that was like I knew that was gonna happen. I knew that that girl was gonna step up. Um, but it was still it was interesting seeing all the white girls just like be
Which so
silent.
often happens with like this is why it's hard to be friends with straight cis women because so many of them have not done the work to not center men. And the moment you are threatening a man or perceived as threatening a man, they'll be like, oh no, we have to protect the man. And it's like, no, we don't.
It's interesting you should bring that up because that was on another show I was going to touch on briefly. Well, not briefly. I'm going to talk about for a bit. That is a trend is white women are conditioned and will constantly fall to catering to men because that's what they're taught to do. But there is also, it feels safer and more comfortable to do that than it does to like, which doesn't make sense because men statistically in relationships do not provide you with the same things that your non-male friends and community tend to give you. Like, women support each other in a way that men can't fathom supporting each other. And then, of course, you have the gender spectrum. And in the queer community, it's like you don't have anybody else, so there's this loyalty in a lot of cases. But this was an interesting thing that came up in Love is Blind. I personally don't really watch Love is Blind. And this one, I believe this season was set in Michigan.
Not relevant.
So I doubly wasn't gonna watch it. But what was interesting was 2 out of 4 of the couples broke up because of differences in political beliefs. And I saw a lot of discussions about this, and I saw a lot of clips from it. And there were 2 women. One was a white woman named Sarah.
The audacity.
Stay tainting my name.
Oh, so evil, yeah.
But hers was spelled without an H. So, evil Sarah. Sarah was a white woman, blonde hair, whole works, whatever. The other one was Virginia. Virginia was not white. And that's why I think Virginia stuck to her convictions a little bit more than Sarah did. So, it was very interesting to see these clips, the dynamics, all that stuff. Because Sarah tested the waters by asking this man, she brought up George Floyd and how impacted she was, and she learned a lot about the Black experience in America through George Floyd. And then she asked him how that impacted him, and he said, well, it doesn't really, and I guess I never really thought about it.
No. Throw him out.
So then she goes and talks to Virginia and was like, I don't know, it's just so strange to me that he, like, doesn't care, and I don't know if I can be with someone like that. And of course, it's not a shock to Virginia.
Yeah.
Because she knows what's going on. That's a very common
Virginia's
thing.
like, what?
You know,
no, you
whatever.
don't say.
The thing about Sarah that frustrated me, so they get to the altar, whatever, and then she says no, and says it's because of political beliefs. And on the way, she has this conversation with her sister, who's a lesbian, and is talking about, like, the differences in politics and how, like, I don't know if I can be with someone who, like, doesn't have the same politics as me. And you can tell her sister is not with it. It's like, don't put this man in our family. Like, if we don't know his politics, if he doesn't care about me, what are we doing? So she's like, you wouldn't have the conversation on camera. You only brought it up when I asked. This is a red flag to me, because even if you won't tell me how you voted, this tells me that you know our views don't align, and you won't bring it up because it might risk the marriage. So she says no. Sarah gets to the reunion and is talking about everything and reveals that after she said no at the altar, she went back to him.
No.
And, oh my God, surprise, he's a shitty boyfriend too.
What? No.
So that's the thing about it that really frustrates me, is like, you had this red flag pop up early on, even if it wasn't about politics, even though that is really important and a lot of people like to pretend it's not. He specifically tried to hide something from you that he knew would make you see him differently. So that's an automatic no.
Yep.
If you go back, you're going back to someone who you can't trust. So
Girl, you knew.
A lot of people are like, don't victim blame, like, he treated her badly, but I'm a little bit like, you knew. You knew from the second you brought up George Floyd. Because you ran to find, like, you're like, this girl's not white, she can help me. And Virginia's like, I got my own situation going on.
Virginia's not your rom-com BFF character. She's a whole person.
No, she's not the token. And you know how the Hallmark movies have, like, it's either one gay who helps the white girl get dressed, or one black friend who's like, you deserve better, girl. Like, those are the two options. They pretty much have the same lines, and they both could be props. You could replace them with cardboard cutouts. That's how Hallmark treats them. So Virginia stood on business a lot more than Sarah did. And they were talking, and this was such an example of white women feminism, because for her, she said the guy she was going to marry would not talk about it on camera, and then when she did the interviews and stuff after she said no, she also said no at the altar. I think her problems came up a little bit later on. She could tell something was different. And they had to have a conversation off camera because he just said not on camera. He would not talk to her about it. So finally in private, they had the conversation. And she said that she was concerned where is such a great moment. She goes to the reunion. She goes, I won't say what he believes because he doesn't want to. Mm-hmm. But I will say what I believe, and I support the LGBT community.
Yes, Virginia.
I support people of all races. I don't care what religion you are. So she like put her foot down, and it was expressed throughout the show that she was nervous because she had family members who were Muslim, and I think he had said something that was weird. And so I found that very interesting that Virginia didn't go back. She said no at the altar and did not speak to that man again, from what I understand. And I thought it was very interesting that Virginia heard about this guy and, like, if you vote Republican, that shows at the very least you don't care what happens to people of color. So that is something that, one, directly impacts Virginia. Another thing that shows if you vote Republican is you also don't really care about a woman's right to choose. Mm-hmm. So that's something that impacts Virginia and Sarah. Yeah. But it was interesting to see the breaking point of also if you vote Republican, you vote for a party that promotes a lot of Islamophobia. Yeah. And so for Virginia, she goes, well, that's my family. I don't want my family to be around someone like that. Yeah. If you vote Republican, you tend to vote for people who hate trans people and gay people. And Sarah heard that and said, I don't know.
Sarah! This is the thing.
And that's what bothered me.
Yeah, because this
was like, Virginia heard this and goes, well, I need to protect my people. Mm-hmm. Like, this is my community. I don't want that coming into my community. Like, her best friend was crying at her wedding and clarified afterwards that she was scared that Virginia was going to say yes to, like, a MAGA supporter. Ooh. And that was one of the reasons she was crying.
I would cry
and that's like sisterhood. Yeah. It was really interesting seeing Sarah and the way that, like, she went back and forth about it. And I've seen this too of, like, I don't find the jokes that happened during the election of, like, oh, my vote cancels out my husband's. I don't find that very funny. Nope. And I knew a lot of girls who, like, you know, dated Republican or whatever and didn't really care. And we're getting to a point, and it has been here for a while, your partner is a reflection of you. Yes. So even if you don't say these things and you don't believe these things, you're telling us that at the very least you tolerate that, and you don't care. Also, you're bringing that man into spaces with, like, your friends and family. For Sarah, it's like, so are you just never going to hang out with your sister in a group setting again? Like, you know, your sister's queer. And I don't want to, like, you know, pile on or, like, judge this girl. Like, she left, and I'm sure he was a shitty person, and he lied to her a lot and, like, tried to manipulate her. And so, like, he does suck. But I think that there was this element of she could be convinced a little bit more than Virginia could, because those values aren't as strong for her as they were for Virginia, because I don't think white women have community as much as ethnic women, black women, you know, that element isn't quite there. So to me, that was an interesting thing to observe. I keep stressing this. I don't know the details, so I don't want to victim blame this girl for going back. I don't know, like, what happened, but they weren't together for very long. It was like a TV thing. I know reality TV can be, like, really shitty and, like, trying on mental health, but I did think the conversations around the politics, the way the lines were a little bit more blurred for her than they were for Virginia, felt very reminiscent of some things I've seen in real life.
Yes. Agreed. To me, it feels so, like, it's two things. Like you said, there's so many people who go into relationships planning a long-term partnership, wanting marriage, but not thinking through that marriage means you are bringing someone into your family and you are joining into their family. And that is something you need to take into consideration. Like, is this someone who will respect and love your family the way you do? This isn't just some guy that's going to be hanging out in your house. This is a guy that's going to be making decisions that will affect you and your family. It's to me, it's very telling that they're not thinking about that. Because so many women do end up with men who are Republicans and MAGA, and I've never really been able to figure what is the appeal other than he is a man who is available and they are anxious about not having a long-term partner. And I understand.
That's it.
I get it to a point. If you are planning to have marriage and biological children, there is a ticking clock, and you can get anxious about, like, I need to find a man, I need to find him soon. But you're shooting yourself in the foot because you're going to end up tied to someone who doesn't respect you, doesn't love you, can't provide for you, can't provide for your family, and now you're still alone. You're just alone and also trapped with this man.
Because there's a few ways that situation happens. They've never hid who they were, and you just kind of think a lot of people for some reason have decided that their morals and their politics are separate things.
So weird.
And I was one of those people who thought that because of the people I grew up around and the things I was taught. And it took me a while to understand, not too long, like a few years, not even. I remember my views on abortion flipped really quickly, literally from one conversation I had a month into college where someone just straight up, I'm just one of those people who just believe their selves and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, that's a big decision to have a kid. And that was all it took, was to talk to someone else and to consider another perspective. I was like, yeah, I don't really know why I think that way. And it took a little bit of getting to know my friends and hearing some of them talk about, like, yeah, I don't like that person. I don't like that one, he makes me feel this way when he says these things. It's like, well, why would you date that person? Bring them around more. And so that's one thing, is some people don't consider those separate. Both of these men employed a very interesting tactic on Love is Blind, where they tried very hard not to talk about their politics. And I think some of this plays into, there's this theme in dating right now of not communicating.
Yes.
And I'm guilty of it as well, as you know. And there's a few reasons why this happens. So I'm going to tie this into the Short and Sweet album from Sabrina Carpenter. When that album came out, I remember there were a lot of men who didn't quite get it, who were like, she's singing about these weird topics of, like, wanting this guy but not telling him. Like, if she just told him, her problems would go away. No. In this day and age, if you are seeing a man and you like him and you tell him that you want him to stay, sometimes that makes them leave, like, suddenly.
Weird.
And so there's this weird liminal space that a lot of women live in, where a little bit of love is better than none. So even though they're like, and that's where the term, like, situationship comes in, where you're in an undefined relationship and there is a danger in defining it, where you're in this limbo where if you say your feelings, they probably won't reciprocate and will leave, and then you have nothing. Or they might stay, but a lot of the times they're not going to stay. So that leads into this, because a lot of times people will get really far into a relationship and then realize, oh, we should start talking about kids. And then they have that conversation
3 years
late,
in, and then they're like, oh no.
3 years in, or they date someone who appeared to believe one thing, and then a few years later, it turns out they've been listening to Red Pill podcasts, and their perspective has changed. And now you're like, well, I love this person, and I know who he is deep down, and he's just saying that now. But I've invested 3 years, I don't want to leave now. So, like...
And then there's men who will lie. That's what happened to my mom with her first marriage. He lied to her about wanting kids. And then once they were married, he was like, oh, I thought you would just change your mind once you had me.
I've heard so many people say that, where they get really far into relationships and then they just assume it's going to change.
It's so bizarre to me. I don't understand that logic.
Yeah. And that's where sometimes, like, I know a lot of women are talking right now about, is there a benefit to marrying a man? Are there tax benefits?
You could just marry your bestie.
Because if not,
have a little platonic lesbian.
You could, but it's also like, it's like, how tied are you willing to be to this person? And then, and that's the other thing. For me, God forbid a man lies to me and then I have his kid. That's so scary, because then that's it. You're there for life. And that was the whole thing with Future and Cardi B, where they're going through their divorce, and he said, well, I won because you're my baby mama, so, like, you have my kids. That's it. She ate him up after that, but that stuck out to me of, like, that is how a lot of men see women. And these, these men lied too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I feel like another layer to this is that so much of womanhood and like so much of being a woman is defined by your relationship and your connection to a man. And so much of manhood is defined by your connection to a woman and what she does for you and how she interacts with you. And it's like your very identity is dependent on these very restrictive gender roles, these patriarchal gender roles that people are not willing to let go of because it gives them a sense of security to give in to them because it's what society has told you from day one. But then you end up in these messy situationships where like it's not really what you want to have this sort of marriage and kids thing, but it's what society has told you want. Or
because it's also very hard to a lot of people don't understand that, like, so everyone says like it's better to be alone than in a miserable relationship, and I really do agree with that. I think that there's an additional bit of advice that comes with that is a lot of people don't know how to be alone and they don't know how to forge connections when they are single, because there is a big element of dating that gives you community where automatically you're like, okay, that's my man, he has like siblings, parents, his friends, my friends, whatever, where that creates that like obligation. It's just like the way the lives get intertwined of like the thought of leaving is very exhausting. And that's why like for me, my mom always stressed for me like have your own money, which is another thing that came up for another Bravo couple that I talked about last time, Miss Paige DeSorbo and Mr. Craig Conover. We're beginning to see Paige and Craig. We're beginning to see some of the conversations that they were having over the past year, and it's becoming very clear where the turning point was for Paige. So Paige had been very upfront from the start of the relationship that like she was not ready to get married and have kids. Paige is currently 32, for reference. Having watched Summer House, I said this last time, she didn't always see herself as a career woman, and then it happened where she like got this opportunity through reality show and she seized it. And she is, in my opinion, the breakout star of, or one of them. I think Lindsay Hubbard is Summer House, but like Paige is definitely getting to new heights and being recognized outside of the space. So her and Craig were like a Bravo power couple, whatever. Craig's on Southern Charm. So Craig's seeing all of these like traditional people who are like down south, time to settle down, have kids. I think Craig is 35. From all the conversations we've heard from Craig, it's clear that he wants a wife and kids. I don't know that Craig wants to be a husband and father, but he wants a wife and kids.
Ooh, that is such a good point. Yes, you put it so succinctly how so many men think of like, I want a wife and kids, but I don't want to
This was another thing was I heard the Celebrity Memoir Book Club podcast talk about this very briefly, where one of them made such a good point where she said, in the year 2025, it is not enough for a trophy wife to be pretty. She also has to be accomplished and respected. And this came up with a different situation on Southern Charm they were talking about. But I felt like that really applied to Paige and Craig as well. Because Craig keeps talking about wanting to get married, wanting to have kids. And you can see him going through the motions of doing what he thinks he has to do. And then Paige is talking about her career. And he keeps making these comments. And one comment he made that was such a red flag to her, or to me, was... He goes, I just never thought I'd be so submissive in a relationship. And she wasn't asking him to submit.
What?
She was saying, I can't come hang out with you in Charleston on the weekends. So this is the other thing. He lives in Charleston. She lives in New York. So they like alternate time together.
Oh.
She was about to go on a tour for her podcast because it's like doing that well. Mm-hmm. And so she was like, I'm preparing for like the biggest year of my life. So we're hanging out and we're seeing each other. But I can't come to you as much right now because my career is really taking off. Craig's got solid business stuff. He keeps telling everybody he's fucking rich. So he can afford to go to her. He doesn't like having to go to her. He wants her to come to him. And so he made that comment. Everyone's like, ooh, uh-oh, Craig. Uh-oh, Craig. And then on Southern Charm, he had... This man also like had an alcohol problem and was trying to tone down his drinking. He was not as explicit in talking about it as he tried to claim that he was. But she made a comment to him where she goes, if you like relapsed I would take the kids and leave in the middle of the night. You wouldn't hear from me again. I'm not dealing with that. And he goes,
yeah.
Well, that's because you have your own money.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's such like a red flag of that. And the look on her face when he said that, I think for her, that was when she was like, I need to go talk to my friends and decide what's going on here. So there was that comment, and then he keeps like clearly being upset that her career is going well. And this was another thing that came up for me in a relationship, is that sometimes, like, it's the whole thing where they want you to be accomplished, they want you to be respected, but they don't want you to be doing better than them.
It's almost like they want you, again, it's like they don't want to be a husband and they want you to do everything they want and to cater to them and their needs, but they don't want to have to make decisions and be responsible for you. They want you to be submissive, but they don't want to have to take the lead on anything. They just want you to magically figure out what they want, and they don't have to do anything. Like a mom.
They also want you to do those things and then just stop everything and have children. And now you're mom and wife, and you keep house. That's your job now.
It's almost like it's part of, like I was saying, these like patriarchal gender roles, this defining of manhood and womanhood. It's almost like having a house, like the term housewife has become so stigmatized, and the idea of like the traditional 1950s housewives has become so stigmatized. So it's almost like if you have a wife who has never had a career, that means you're less of a man, because that's a thing weird men do who are into like fundamentalist Christian cults. So you have to have a wife who has had a career, but she also has to cater to you, so she has to give up her career for you.
That's an interesting point, because they don't date the women who want that. And that was like Trevor Noah, he described his mom in his book, that she was like an exotic bird in a gilded cage. And that is definitely something that is also coming up of men are like exotic bird collectors. And they want an independent woman. They don't want her to continue being independent. They want that, like, to cage her. They want this exotic bird who's like, people are like, oh, wow, she's done so much. She's so smart. Yeah. And I have her in my home. And she has my babies. And that's my bird now. That independent is my girl.
Like a doll.
That's mine. I took her. She lives in my zoo. And those are my children. And she takes care of them. And I go golf.
You know I hate golf.
Yeah. Oh, Craig golfs.
Fuck Craig.
There was a whole fight on this season of Southern Charm because Craig wouldn't go golfing with Austin, and Austin was sad because he invited Craig, and Craig said no.
What rich boy problem is
Craig
this?
Craig was like, I have businesses, I work, and Austin was like, I just asked for your schedule so that we could have time to be bros, man.
Men have so much drama they never admit to, but they are just as dramatic as women are.
Because so that happened, and then Craig spends the whole season going around like, Austin hates me. I don't know why Austin hates me. And Austin's like, I just want to play golf with Craig. What's going on?
This is so realistic to how men operate.
So like, and having watched Southern Charm, Austin's not a great guy, but weirdly, this season, he's kind of coming off okay with some of the other things going on. He's like, Craig, what's going on? I thought we were going to go to golf. And I was like, why do you hate Craig? He's like, what? I don't hate Craig. I want to golf with Craig. I feel like Craig doesn't want to be my friend anymore. Which also is such a cute storyline.
He just wants to hang out with a friend.
For these two men in their 30s. Yeah, he's like, I don't know what happened to my friend. My friend won't golf with me, and he yelled at me that he's busy.
This is such a thing cis straight men do, where like they want those friendships, but also, again, manhood is defined as not having any connection to other men, because you have to be the only man in the room. So if you
because no homo.
Two dudes sitting in a hot tub 3 feet apart because they're not gay. So we can't go golfing.
Exactly. If Craig went golfing with Austin, he would be gay.
That's how it works.
Even if they're in separate golf carts, there's so much space on golf courses. They are so far apart.
I hate it so much. It's such a waste of land, and don't get me started on it. But yeah, this is such a thing. This is touching on a lot of things of that I've seen in, because the only reality show I've really watched is The Queer Ultimatum.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's interesting that so much of the reality shows you're watching, there's this common theme of wanting partnership as a defining hallmark, as a defining milestone for life and your like definition of adulthood and your definition of yourself, in terms of you can't be a person until you have another person partnered to you. And of course with hetero cis couples, it's very much like this is how we define ourselves, man, woman, etc. But then like in queer couples, particularly in the like lesbian sapphic community, we still see that, but it's like a little different, where it seems like so many queer women and sapphic people have this idea in their heads of like, I need to be partnered up with someone and have a domestic life with them, and then I will be happy. And I need to get married and have kids. And if I don't have that, life is bad automatically. Because Queer Ultimatum is the show where you give your partner the ultimatum. Like, they gather all these queer couples, all these sapphic people, and they say, and the couples have, one partner has given the other partner an ultimatum. Either we get married, or we're gonna go date other people. And so they gather up for the show, and they have this whole scene where like their breakup is like filmed, so it's like, oh, this is genuinely happening, but it's like clearly scripted and they planned it out ahead of time. So they break up, and then they like meet the other people who have now also broken up, and they're chatting, and then they date, and they have a little fake marriage with another person, not their original partner, with a new partner. Okay. They go and live together for several weeks. And then you go back together with your original partner. And then at like the final episode, you decide if you're gonna like get engaged to your original partner, or you're gonna go with the new partner you were put together with. And so the villain, there were a few villains. The main villain who unfairly got an edit, the villain edit, is Vanessa. Vanessa arrived to Queer Ultimatum with Xander. Vanessa and Xander have known each other, I think, since high school. They were friends for a while. Before they figured out they were queer, they were both dating men who were friends, and then they broke up with their men, and then they met up, and they got together, and it was very cute. So within the show, Vanessa very much gets this villain edit where she's portrayed as just being very mean and catty and rude and obnoxious. And there's this weird point, there's another couple, Ray and Lexi, so within Xander and Vanessa, Xander gave Vanessa the ultimatum. Xander wants to get married. Vanessa's not ready yet. They break up. Vanessa goes with, I think it's Ray. Ray was given the ultimatum, marry me or go date someone else, by Lexi. So Vanessa and Ray are both people who are like, I'm not ready for marriage yet. They both got the ultimatum. So they're paired up. They like apparently have some sort of casual sex, and then Lexi gets upset about it and brings it up at dinner. Hold on. Vanessa...
I have a quick question.
Okay. Yeah.
Do they discuss ground rules before doing this?
That's such a great question. I don't remember. I don't know.
Because...
I think it's like you're supposed to be living as a real couple.
This is sounding like... Okay, so this is like Temptation Island. I think I explained to you is a little bit more messy, where they like separate the couples, but they actually ask them, and this is why the host Mark L. Wahlberg, who is not the same as Mark Wahlberg of Bostonian hate crime fame, Mark L. Wahlberg hosts, and you can tell, and I saw an interview with him where he does consider himself more of like a therapist in that setting, where his role is to ask them like, what are you getting out of this? And like throughout the experience, it's very cute the way he tries to get the men to open up about their feelings. But that's a big key point in the show, is before they go in, he goes, what are your ground rules? What have you decided is not okay? And if they do something that upsets the girl or upsets the guy, he goes, what were your ground rules? What's being broken here?
I don't think that happened on Queer Ultimatum, because I think they were aiming for the messiest, dirtiest possible lesbian drama they could possibly get.
Oh, they got it.
So Vanessa goes off with Ray. She and Ray hook up. Here's the thing, other couples are hooking up, but for some reason everyone turned on Vanessa and was like, Vanessa, how could you cheat? And it's like, Xander was off hooking up with Yoli, so I don't really know. And like Vanessa has a few times where...
Hold on! Vanessa and Xander cheated, but only Vanessa's the bad guy?
Listen, we're gonna get into it. So here's the thing, at one point Vanessa says, Within the show, it looks like she is saying, I don't think Xander will hook up with anybody because I think that outside of me, Xander is asexual. And she said that because of something Xander had told her previously, but also it's edited where it sounds a lot worse than what she originally said. She has now posted on TikTok about everything she originally said versus what got changed in the edit. And people have seen, outside of what Vanessa has posted, people have been pointing out, like, it's very clearly heavily edited. Like, within the same scene, a girl will have makeup on, it'll go to someone else she's talking to, it'll go back to her, she doesn't have makeup on. It goes back to someone else.
This happens in Love Island constantly.
And so, okay, so Vanessa is with Ray. Vanessa and Ray, from what we now know, were just trying to survive this show. Xander gets together with Yoli. So Yoli and Mal, Yoli is the one giving the ultimatum. Mal's reason for not wanting, we don't really hear everyone's reasons for not wanting to get married. I think Vanessa's reason was she just like wanted to have a chance to be wild and have like a fun time, which I kind of understand because from what I understand her like life has been, she was in a relationship with a man, she figured out I think she identifies as like queer or pansexual, I'm not sure, but like not multiple people, and she figured out she likes women, and then she like immediately got into a relationship with Xander, and it sounds like she never really got to have like a fun casual phase, and I understand wanting to have that. I understand wanting to be like, but like again, we don't really get a full in-depth reason. There might have been other reasons she didn't want to get married.
I also just want to stress that because this is Queer Ultimatum, that fuck around phase is so much different if you've like been closeted your whole life and then it's like, oh wait, hold on, this is more fun for me, and then not thinking about the what could have beens, then like, because at first I rolled my eyes when you said that because I've heard a lot of guys say that, that's how like the bachelor party is born, but it's very different
because you don't really, if you figure out your sexuality later, everyone, like, straight people get to have.
That's, like, a whole new life.
Yeah, straight people get to have that phase in high school and college, but if you don't figure it out till after college, or even if you figure out in the middle of college, like, you've passed on that phase of, like, growing up that everyone else got. But anyway, back to Xander.
Can I also do an age check on these people? Do we know how old they are?
So, that's such a great question. I think Vanessa and Xander are like late 20s, early 30s. Oh. Yoli and Mal are definitely early 30s, if not mid to late. No, they're definitely like mid 30s at most.
So this is messy.
This is messy.
Because if you were early 20s, it's like just break up and go fuck. But since you're in your 30s, it's different.
Ray and Lexi are like the youngest couple, I think. I'm not going to look up their ages right now. But
you don't have to.
Yeah. Okay, so anyway, Mal and Yoli. Mal's reason for not wanting to get married is that Mal and Yoli were friends before they got together. And Mal has seen Yoli. Mal says, I forget what Mal said, it was really funny. But basically Mal's position is that, number one, Yoli wants to marry whoever she's dating. Yoli just wants to be in a relationship. Number two, before they get married, Mal wants to make sure they have enough money and security in life to get a house, have money for IVF, to have kids, all of that. And I feel like that's a very mature response, and I feel like this is a very common couple problem where, like, one person is like, if you really loved me, you would marry me, and we would get together, and I don't understand why we're not doing this. And the other person is being like, well, we need to be responsible, because all this stuff costs money. And if we want to do it the way we're picturing it, I want this to be a good experience for both of us, that's going to cost money. And I feel like both of those are... I mean, I'm more on the side of, like, we should be responsible, but that's just, I thankfully am engaged to someone who is also on that side, like, we need to be responsible first. I can't imagine what it would be like.
I mean, over the past 3 years, I feel like every 6 months I'm, like, texting you, like, I should move. Like, I'm so on the other side and I think part of it is, like, I talk a lot about, like, the weird movies I watch with my dad, but, like, he loves rom-coms. I think my dad's kind of, like, a romantic.
He is.
Something he always said is, like, everything will fall into place. Like, if it's right, it'll all... And so that's sort of how I operate, and that's when you run into those roadblocks is you need to talk about it, because you're running into a mismatch in timelines and, values where it's like, you value having safety and security, and, like, those are very important things in relationships. And then the other person's like, well, I really value that commitment regardless of the security, and if we talked about it, we could figure it out. But that's why instead we'll go on a reality dating show. Because now I get to see that and we get to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Honestly, they're taking one for the team.
Yeah. So Yoli goes with Xander. Xander and Yoli seem to hit it off immediately. So what Vanessa has later revealed is that what they were not told this was Queer Ultimatum. They were told it would be like a relationship coach, relationship advice type of show. And they showed up to film and they were told this and they were like, okay, we'll do this. We'll play. Vanessa's thought they were going to play along and not do it seriously. So Vanessa was very shocked and heartbroken when Xander is immediately going to town, like really getting together with Yoli and is telling Vanessa about it and is like, I'm really falling for Yoli. And of course, Vanessa hears that and is heartbroken. And so what we see in the show, we don't know this backstory. All we see is that Vanessa showed up to this reality show and said, I want to fuck around and have a hoe phase and go wild. And then got heartbroken when Xander's like, I found someone I like.
Right.
So Vanessa was trying to like play along to the reality TV show nonsense of it all, but Xander apparently was taking it very seriously, because what Vanessa has now revealed, they get together at the end. Vanessa and Xander, they get back together, they go back home. Xander was still talking to Yoli. Xander was still like paying for Yoli to come visit them. Xander has they them pronouns to come visit them.
Xander was
yeah.
Mo, with the name Xander, I knew.
That's fair.
Xander is flying Yoli out?
Yeah. Yeah, it's bad. They have now broken up.
That's rapper behavior.
Vanessa.
That's future behavior.
To be clear, these two are now really broken up. Vanessa is now with a new, hot, handsome butch.
Hold on. What does Xander do for work?
Maybe they didn't fly. I don't know. They left.
How are we affording all these plane tickets?
They left their anniversary dinner with Vanessa and were on like a really long phone call and came back. And then Vanessa went through Xander's phone and found like they had been talking to Yoli about Yoli coming out to visit. So, yeah.
Sorry, I just had to arrange plane tickets recently for something and forgot how expensive they were. So when you said that,
so expensive.
I was so caught up. Damn.
But yeah, it seems... My thing with this is it seems very obvious that both Yoli... Because Mal pointed this out about Yoli. Like, Yoli just wants to have a marriage and doesn't really care who it's with. And I think Xander is the same way. And I feel like there's a lot of queer women who do this. Because I remember when I would go on first dates with women, it really felt like they weren't interested in me. They just wanted any relationship. They just really wanted to be partnered up, and I happened to be available. And I feel like that's what happened on Queer Ultimatum, where there was a whole bunch of queer women who, like, they don't necessarily want the person they're with. They just want marriage right now. Domestic life, because that's what they believe defines them as a person. Going back what society has taught us about womanhood, manhood, and like adulthood and being a person. Being paired up is so important that you have to overlook everything else. Because Lexi did get married, but I think she might be getting a divorce now or something. Oh. Anyways, Lexi didn't marry her original partner or anyone from the show. Lexi found someone else and got like married to them. And there were other couples. The only couple of this show who stayed together and is in love is Sam. I don't remember Sam's part name. Whatever. They were like the older, I think they were in their like 40s. And their main problem was that like Sam wanted to get married, but their partner wasn't very good at communicating and would shut down a lot when any sort of emotional conflict came up and would withdraw. And that was like the main problem, which is like a very realistic problem to have, especially if you have like a traumatic background. And they like seemed to resolve it and like got together, and I think they're now engaged or married. So one couple survived, the most mature couple of this whole group. The other couple is Mildred and Tiff. Mildred and Tiff, we later find out Mildred is actually physically abusive. And Tiff had to basically call the cops on her, and also like I think call CPS because Mildred has children. So, that Mildred and Tiff were a whole...
Did they touch on it on the show, or did they try to cover it up?
I feel like, if I remember correctly, they kind of covered it up a little bit. They gave them a very sexualized angle, like a straight man's point of view sexualized angle.
I see.
I think one of them is Latina, if not both. So that's another angle. But... So I feel like Tiff was very upfront with the show, like, hey, this is what happened, because there was like a year between the end of the show and the reunion. And like all of this, Tiff having to like call the cops, CPS, whatever, all of that happens in that year, and then Tiff comes back to the reunion show and like had told the producers about all this, and it seems like the producers kind of again just wanted the mess, just wanted the drama. So just letting you know what happened with the other couples. But with this, again, I feel like the problem with Yoli and Xander and Lexi is these three, they just wanted a relationship. They just wanted to have that status. It's almost like it's seen as a status for people of, if you are single, that's a lesser status than having marriage, than having the domestic life. And Vanessa now, from what I've seen, has like a very, I think she got together with a, God, she has a type. The person she's now with is like this hot butch gym trainer.
Get it, girl.
She's very funny. I think, I'm not saying she's a perfect human. She definitely made bad decisions and mistakes, but like she did not deserve the villain edit she got. And I feel like she got the villain edit because she didn't give in to that social status wanting a marriage partner. Like, she straight up was like, I want to have fun. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to have fun. There's nothing wrong with saying, I want to go out and hook up. Obviously, if you are partnered, you need to, like, discuss that with your partner and everything. But in the context of the show, it really seems like they wanted to make the people who wanted marriage partners and give into this very normative, patriarchal idea, and give them, like, the hero edit, and give anyone who didn't give into this a villain edit or just, like, a lesser good edit than that. Yeah.
That is such a trend of the just like not knowing how to be alone. And it starts like, it really is, this also came up with, do you know Drew Offwallow?
No.
She's like a content creator. Her whole thing was she got up from like basically she would bully misogynistic men, and it's so great to watch.
Love that.
She's, I believe, Polynesian. So we love to support, you know, my work's on a whole thing about Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month. So I was like, oh, it's coming up. And I was like, oh, it's not. It's just one of the two things. You know? They were like, we have these things coming up. And I just got it mixed up. But we support all of our, like, powerful women, all that. She got engaged to this guy she, like, went to high school with. And it was interesting because a lot of people tried to pull her up on that and be like, you hate men, but you're engaged to men. And then she made a video and was like, ladies, and she held up her finger and she goes, this is not a prize for like getting married. This is a reward because I waited for the right one. And that was like, I think a very like good point. I think she's in her 20s. I think like mid to late, so I'm a little bit like, okay, like you're still pretty young. I'm sure they're gonna work out. She met him a lot earlier than I think a lot of people have. But I think her main point is very true of like, there's so much pressure on getting married, and a lot of times you end up projecting who you want someone to be on another person, and that's where you find that of like, you know, some of these situationships, so like the Sabrina Carpenter songs of like, I don't want him to leave me, so I'm not gonna tell him, and instead in my head you're this great guy. And one day you'll realize it, and one day we'll be together. And that's never how it happens. But that's that little bit of hope that you hold on to in that, like, the hetero dating. That's, like, one side to it of that, like, desperation, I guess, where you're told from a young age, like, you're gonna get married and you're gonna find your other half, and then you'll be complete. And then you'll have true happiness.
Yes.
But there's not enough of, like, you have to wait.
Yeah.
It's hard, but, like, you know, hell, I'm still waiting, looking around. And, you know, it's interesting because I also have gone on some dates where I talked to someone who it was very clear he wanted a wife, and he just decided he was hitting an age where he was ready.
Yeah.
And it's very strange because then it feels very hollow where you're like, well, I'm a whole person. I want you to like me for me. And so that's like the duality of the like being in a relationship and projecting onto someone and then having that projected onto you, and it's just very hollow and lost. And it's
because you want
it's just messy.
Be seen as a person. You want this person to love you for who you are, not what you can provide.
Exactly. So it's interesting watching some of that play out in these like different forms in reality TV of like people, they want to be married and they want to be in love, and I think they don't understand. I feel like they get mixed up in the order of operations there a little bit, and I think some of that comes with the like, well, I want to have money before we get married, and the no, I want to get married now, and those are like the different steps and stuff.
And I will say, even when, because I am currently engaged, and I truly feel like I have found my soulmate, I have found like the perfect person for me, and I love her so much. But the interesting thing is, even now when we're engaged, because we wanted to do a long engagement to really make sure we have all our ducks in a row. And every single time we have told people when our wedding date is, they're like, oh, that's a long ways away. That's far away. And it's like, who cares? Like, we know we're with each other till the end. We have found our person. This is it. Yes, we are going to love the wedding and everything, and we're looking forward to, like, being married. But, like, at the end of the day, we already have it. Like, we already know. But for other people, it's so strange that we're not rushing into it, into the status, into this social marker of,
I feel like, though, your timeline is what used to be a quote-unquote reasonable timeline. And I wonder if post-COVID, that timeline has gone down because so many... I know people are still paying for, like, big weddings, but, like...
It's expensive.
Like, one of my friends out here, she's been engaged for, like, a long time, and they're hitting a point where they're like, okay, what do we do? And for them, I think they're thinking elopement, and, you know, I have a sibling who got married who, like, just did courthouse, and I feel like I'm running into less people who want to be married in general, but less people want to have a wedding. So I wonder if that's some of it, where suddenly this timeline and this idea has gotten so skewed from COVID, where everyone was kind of like, I had a boss who also, like, suddenly did, like, a courthouse marriage during COVID because they were just like, well, we can't get married, but we want to be together, so let's just do it. Who cares?
And what you just said, this, like, we want to be together, is I feel like the idea of, like, you're not truly together till you have the marriage contract. And for me, it's like, I guess because I'm gay, I feel like gay people, because we didn't have that for so long. And, like, I worked with someone who, he and his fiance who's a man, they've been engaged for years, and he's like, I don't know, maybe one day we'll get married, maybe one day we won't, but, like, it's just not something, for so many queer couples, this idea of, like, you have to have the marriage contract for your relationship to be defined as real within the eyes of society, is something that historically has not been relevant to the queer community. And only now within the last few years has that been, like, a possibility. And so now it's, like, coming into a societal expectation. And I guess I've just always had this point of view of, like, if you and your person know it's you and them, marriage is great, but, like, it's really about the person, not, like, the physical, like, the ring or the marriage contract. But for other people, it's like the reverse. It's like you have to have the marriage, you have to have the contract and the ring in order for it to be real.
Yeah. It's interesting because this also, another thing, I don't want to get too in the weeds of it, there's an ongoing lawsuit about it, but on Vanderpump Rules, there was a couple, Ariana Maddox and Tom Sandoval, who were unmarried and living together for like 10 years. They were like domestic partners for 10 years, and they purchased a home together. And I didn't realize the logistics of purchasing a home with somebody who you are not married to until they broke up, and then it became such an issue to try and sell the home because they were not married. They weren't going through a divorce, so it wasn't considered an asset to be divided between the two of them. So it has turned into a legal battle to force the house to sale because he didn't want to sell it, but he didn't have the money to buy it from her. And then she was like, well, I'm paying a mortgage on this house. I'm not leaving this house. So then they've broken up, and they're living in the same house, and people gave her such shit about it. But I understand why she did that, because why would she go pay for another apartment when she's already paying mortgage on this house, and she just can't get him to sell? And so, weirdly, through watching that show and watching that happen, I was like, well, I guess I'm not buying a house unless I'm married to somebody. And that's when I realized, like, for me, when a lot of people are saying, what's the point in marrying men? You know, having a prenup is important to me to protect my assets. I don't own a home, but I'm not going to buy a house with someone if there's a possibility that we're, because divorces happen. It's like a 50% divorce rate in the U.S. So it's, to me...
And so many men lie and change.
Yeah, and there's always, like, this is another thing I was talking to a friend about, is in this dating where you're in these, like, situationships, and then you confess their feelings, and they leave. So much of the time we blame ourselves. A lot of women do, where we're like, well, we should have known better, we should have sussed it out better. But they aren't truthful. So I kind of always had this feeling of like, oh, I would know. I'd never marry someone who'd do something like that. And now that I'm older, I'm like, I might get got. I'm doing the best I can, but, like, gotta be prepared for everything. So for me, that's, like, where I've realized marriage fits in, is, like, obviously I want to buy a pretty white dress and look hot and, like, go to a foreign country and get married with, like, a beautiful backdrop and have beautiful photos and be like, look how hot me and my partner are. We're married and you're not. Get out of here. But I also need to be able to protect myself in the event that, like if we want to go to the next step, like, you know, custody agreements with an ex-husband is a lot easier than custody agreements with a baby daddy.
Yeah.
So that's, like, and even then that's a whole headache, and then you have to have, like, legal fees and stuff. But it's very interesting the way that I see some of these things is, like, you gotta protect yourself in case something happens. When there are some people, like these Men in Love is Blind, who they think, well, we get married and then we're set for life and you can't leave.
This is the woman who will take care of me till I die because my mommy no longer will.
Right, and she will have my babies, and that's my bird in a cage in my house. That's my bird with my little children. And she'll just fix everything for me. She's good at that stuff. I heard she was good at that in her job, but she doesn't do her little job anymore. Her little job is me now. So.
Yeah. And then on the flip side, with when women are in relationships with other women, you have this, like, because so many women are told that exact dynamic is the way you become a person. So then you just have two women trying to find that with each other, of, like, you need that domestic partnership to be a person, to have the partnership, to have a complete life. And that's just not really realistic for the human experience.
Yeah. That was Daniel Sloss had a really great special where he talked about that, because he said growing up, like, his parents were so in love, and he just always felt so sad and incomplete when he was alone, and it took him a while to realize, like, oh, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, you might not find your person, which I find very interesting, because he is with someone now and they have a kid together.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the opinion that, like, you find your person when you're finally just like, I'm done. I can't do this shit anymore. And that's when you're like, that's it, it's me. You know, you look at your cat and you're like, it's me and you for life. And then you meet somebody. So, but that was, like, such a good special, because he described it as you're putting, his dad had this analogy of, like, you're putting together a puzzle and you're missing the puzzle piece, and you meet people who have different puzzle pieces and you have to see if it fits with your puzzle, and then one day you'll find the person who has that exact piece that you're missing, and you're like, that's, now my puzzle's complete. And then you work together to do a new puzzle that you've, like, done together. And I thought that was very sweet, but I also love that he follows up by saying, fuck the puzzle, like, I got all these pieces and no one else, and realizing that we've been conditioned growing up to be like, all these Disney movies and everything is like, you're gonna find true happiness and you're gonna feel whole when you meet your other half. And
you can be whole on your own.
And that's the thing, is, like, happiness is what you make it. And that's, like, every few months, that's, like, whenever I run to Mo and I'm like, I need to move. It's like that, wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah, I also feel like you're not going to be happy in a relationship, truly, until you do realize who you are as a person.
Because even...
as a whole.
Exactly, because even if you end up, like, there's a lot of guys who want to date baddies, and then they date a baddie and it doesn't fix their insecurities, because they got the girl, they got the baddie, but they still don't like what she posts on Instagram, and they still don't like who's interacting, and it's never enough. And it's because the issue is they're insecure, they don't trust, and that's not her problem, but also, like, you're dating a hot baddie, bro. You think people aren't gonna hit on her? Like, you can't be weird about that. You have to, like, you have to know who you are. If you're gonna date someone where you're like, if you can date anyone, you need to know who you are. And relationships are a good way to learn who you are, because it's like holding up a mirror, essentially. It's like, look at yourself. it's either a way for you to look at yourself, or it's a way for you to like morph into the person that you're dating, which is another thing I've seen happen. And so that's the whole thing. And in all of these relationships too, like with Love is Blind, where they have these political issues, then it becomes, am I going to bend my morals to fit into your life, or am I going to go find someone who fits better? And I feel like there's a lot more pressure on women to adapt to men's lives. Or, you know, if there's someone in, you know, the ultimatum who's like, I don't know if I'm ready for marriage, that person's under a lot more pressure. It's like, why don't you just bend to be married, because you're supposed to be married? And that's the only true indicator that, like, you're in love. Because we don't see a ring, there's no way you have feelings for your wife.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of pressure to adapt and change who you are. And so I think you need to be alone to know who you are, and you need to be in relationships to see, like, how true are you to that person. Like, I was listening to my silly little Reddit stories again, and there was this couple where this woman was talking about how there was this whole thing. There was this huge lie in a relationship where she thought her boyfriend cheated on her. He thought she cheated on him. It turned out it was because they got an STD. It turned out it was a fluke thing. I don't believe it. I don't think it happened. I'm just putting that out there. I think this is fake.
Yeah.
What was interesting was this writer who wrote this creative writing exercise was like, I always told myself if I got cheated on, I would leave, and then I didn't. So I think I'm not that person I thought I was. That part I think is true. I think there are a lot of people who get into relationships who think I am this way, and then they are faced with it, and they react in different ways. And I think that's how you learn about yourself too. So all of this is to say, like, it's okay to leave relationships that aren't suiting you, because it's not wasted time. You've learned things about yourself. Even if you reacted in ways you don't like, you could take that with you and remember that for the next time it happens, and react differently and see what happens. Choose your own adventure, bitch.
Live your life by what you personally want and need, and not what society has told you
and
you want
even
and
if
need.
It's annoying that people keep asking you and keep being like, you need to be married, like, it's okay. It's okay to say no to that, and it's also okay to change your mind. It's okay to be like, I don't think I want to get married, and then a few years be like, actually, I want to rock. That's okay too.
Yeah, it's okay to want that.
It is. And I'm tired of watching these reality shows where people get demonized for changing their minds, especially if they've been on the air for like 10 fucking years. It's reasonable that you be a different person. And if you're not a different person, Sheena Shea, at the end of Vanderpump Rules than you were from season 1, that's strange to me. Sorry to take a shot at Sheena there. I just...
We are constantly growing and changing, and it is a good thing. My favorite song by Florence and the Machine is Third Eye, and specifically because it has this one lyric about, like, I'm changing, I'm trying to change, and I always listen to that when I'm going through a hard part of life, because I know I'm changing, and I need to change, but it's hard, but also, like, you need to. 10 years ago, I was a 19-year-old with long hair who was trying to fit into feminine clothes, who thought I was exclusively attracted to men, who also, like, was super politically conservative. Like, I have changed in 10 years. None of that is true anymore. And thank fuck.
Oh my god. It's cool to see that now. To, like, remember who we were and look at who we are now.
Yeah.
It's so funny, too.
There was a time you wanted to be a professional cook.
What?
Remember when you wanted to be a professional cook?
Oh, yeah. No, I didn't hear it. But yeah, there was a time I wanted to cook. There was a time I thought I was going to join the military.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
There was a time I rode horses. That was fun, too. You wouldn't look at me and be like, that girl? Horse girl. I was not a horse girl, but I rode horses.
Yeah. Very different.
So
I mean, we grew up in the rural country. Everyone had it. Well,
exactly.
not me, but you know.
And that's,
but anyways,
too, like, even if I met people, like, you know, I'm about to be 27. If I met someone I went to college with, we'd be very different people. I haven't seen some of those people in a long time. I was thinking about that recently with this Venus retrograde happening. Reflecting on my relationships. I was like, damn, I'm a very different person. You wouldn't recognize me.
But yeah, I think we've said some very core truths about relationships and how they interact with our real selves and what we want versus what we need versus what society tells us.
And I think real selves is very key here, because I have heard accounts like Vanessa's from other reality shows on Netflix where, you know, you do your best to be yourself. And I really wish they'd just drop the fourth wall and let us in to some of that, because that would be far more interesting than what they show us. Like at the end of Vanderpump Rules, the final, which we now know is the finale, they dropped the fourth wall and there was all this tension all season and people were fighting, and then it comes down and they show Ariana Madix going to the producer and saying, I told you I would hang out with him in group settings, but I was not going to have a one-on-one conversation with him. And you keep pressuring me to do this, and I'm not doing this. I'm not talking to this man. He cheated on me, and he put me at physical risk by cheating on me. So I'm not going to talk to him. I'm leaving. I'm hungry. I'm going to Applebee's. And she left with her friends and went to Applebee's. Yeah. And then they show the aftermath of everyone on the cast getting really pissed, being like, that would have been so great for the show if she just fucking talked to Tom. I can't believe she won't speak to Tom. And that was so much more interesting than anything else that happened on the show.
Yeah.
And it really upsets me that, like, because then it also, like, distorts your reality, because you're like, why are these girls fighting? That makes no sense that they're fighting over a water tasting at someone's house being boring. That's stupid. And then the walls come down and you find out actually they were fighting because of contracts. I want to know this. This is real. This is reality. And it sucks that reality TV can be, you know, they have these relationship things that are supposed to be fucking transparent, and you're watching it and you're like, that girl was wearing makeup 3 seconds ago and now she's fresh faced out the shower. What happened?
She was eating french fries and now she's eating
the french fries are back.
What? That doesn't track.
Just a really quick thing I want to say. I want to shout out before we move, let everybody go, was it was pointed out to me recently that in Summer House, you can see they put down this tape to hide all the wiring, because it's like they have cameras and boom mics set up throughout the house, so like you don't always see the people holding the camera, and that's, I think, what makes Summer House so unique, is like these people forget that they're on camera a lot because the cameras are all around. And someone pointed out recently that you can see it looks so bad, the tape on the floor to cover the wires. It used to be black and they've switched it to this wood pattern that sort of matches the floor, but it's like all unaligned and it looks so bad. So if you're watching Summer House, a fun thing to do is to go and try to find the tape on the floor. It doesn't match at all, and it's so frustrating and so funny. Yeah.
I love that. That's so good.
But yeah, that's my take on reality, not so real relationships.
Yeah. Good takes. Good stuff. We will let us know your thoughts on reality TV and relationships and any of the people we've talked about here. Get into fights about it.
I also would really appreciate if you commented like a full multi-paragraph essay about a breakup that you had, but it has to be interesting.
Yeah.
I want juicy details.
Tell us everything.
But don't belabor it.
Yeah.
I want it
give
all.
us the dirt.
I'm nosy, bitch.
Especially if it's gay drama. That's always the best.
Gay drama is the best drama.
Okay, that's your assignment.
So glad they even did a queer ultimatum.
That's your assignment this week, listeners. Have a good day, a good night, a good whatever. I am Mo.
I am Sarah.
And that's all. Good night.